sessions of the day. I will be holding space for 2 people to make creative offerings to all of you, to all of us. We have Angelique Thomas, who will be reading 2 pieces of poetry. And then I'll be welcoming Virginia McKenney, who will also be reading and sharing some of the illustrations from a book that she has created. I'm not sure how much time we have. So we have about 20 minutes. I'm just going to try to maximize as much as we can with the time that we have. So Angelique,
Catriona, we can go. We can take 10 minutes extra, so you can take the full half hour if it's needed.
Thank you. Because I would really love to open up the floor and have conversation after these offerings. So Angelique, would you like to switch your video on?
My connection's sorry, my connection's pretty choppy, so I thought I'd leave the video off just to make sure I can be heard clearly, if that's okay.
That's great.
I thought for the translations it might be useful for everyone to actually read along with me. So is it okay if I actually share the screen and hopefully everyone can see the poem itself? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
The
floor is yours to do what you like with it.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to start reading. So the first one is called Splatters of Red. My niece came back from school today and called me to her room and quietly whispered that her teacher spoke about periods today and in front of the boys. I stay silent and wait. Part of me wants her to own it and be proud of what her body can do. Part of me wants her to be quietly delighted in the fact that these lessons are given to boys too, the future fathers and partners to be. But she isn't proud or delighted. Her whispers are hidden wisps of shame. And I think back on the day I got my period, wondering if I would bleed to death. My mother had never had this conversation, and while books had told me a lot, I didn't know just how much was normal. And I wonder if the shame got passed down one generation to the next, and what could happen if joy was hereditary, if I could pass it through me, and if all the magic of our bodies, all of the lumps and bumps, all our wants and needs could break out and echo to the generations after, that it was okay, that we were okay, that laughing at the days to come was okay, that blood was power and not shame, that whispers became loud songs, and that shame could be turned into pride. I will move on to the second poem. This one is called Daring. My history is lodged in the throats of women with brown and caramel and sometimes milky skin and freckles like mine. Their words never spoken as powerful hands pressed against her neck and forced my history into silence. Locked up in the bones of my mother's mother's mother, who was not allowed near that white boy but did it anyway, is bravery. She dared go where she was not supposed to. She dared to go for what she wanted. She dared. Because of her, I am woman, mangled roots of koi and colored spilling over. I am woman, strong and fierce, feeling, healing, being. I am mine, undefiled, unmarked, unpolluted, but not unscathed. They have tried to rip the joys of sex from us, throwing us into a world of danger. The nurse looks at her and guesses her age. Aren't you too young for sex? Is jy 'n hoer? I hear the echoing whispers of this question from piercing eyes. Wie se kind is die? Die Here weet alleen. But I am woman, whole, unafraid to dare, unashamed, free, and full of bursting joy. I am the great-granddaughter of a woman who dared. Ek is die agterkleindogter van 'n koningin. Where her story was muffled by the hands that choked her truth, I am free to rewrite history on the side of truth, the side that dares speak back to take what was always mine and always ours. That's it.
Thank you, Angelique. Those were two very powerful poems that you read for us. I see lots of appreciation happening in the chat box. I would like just to offer you a moment or two, if there's anything you'd like to share about these two pieces you've written. It's not obligatory, but I don't want to move on too quickly. I want to give you that space.
No problem. Well, I actually feel like it's said enough, and I don't think there's anything I'd actually want to add to it, if that is okay.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you. And I'll come back to you after Virginia's reading and sharing, and I think we can have a more general conversation. Virginia, are you with us? And would you like to come on screen?
Can you hear me?
Hello. Hi, good to see you. Welcome.
Okay, I think the two poems.
Yes, I don't know if it's my connection that's a bit choppy.
No.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? No, that's not going to work.
No, we can hear you, Virginia.
Is how things.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was just going to make an observation about the two poems you've just heard, because I think it's a very nice lead on to some of the things that are happening in the little story that I'm going to be telling you. Very much about female experience, very much about places of joy that are often hidden. So I think there's a nice lead through. I don't quite know how you want me to do this. Do you want to? Can you hear me, Catriona?
What would you be comfortable with, Virginia? Do you want to read first, have the images up while you read? Would you like to screen share? What
I'll have the images up whilst I read.
You're welcome to begin by responding to.
Carla, you seem to be able to hear. Your line seems to be good. How about everybody else?
Yeah, I can hear. Catriona, you froze briefly. I just want to know.
Can you hear me now?
You're slightly delayed and a little pixelated.
Okay.
Must be
I
tired.
hope it's gonna.
That's the condition of life nowadays.
It is.
Okay, so I think yes, and with the connections are saying okay, yes, Catriona, it's your connection that's in and out, but people can hear Virginia from what I can see in the chat. Okay, so Virginia, I think Catriona, I don't know if you're back probably, but yeah, the idea was if you'd like to respond first or talk about the experience and then do the reading, whatever works for you in the space. Was that where you were going, Catriona? Oh, Catriona's frozen. No, she's back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carla.
Okay, so I'll just briefly introduce what I'm going to be reading to you to bring it into the context of the conference, which is why I kind of indicated to Carla that I had this little offering that might be useful. I'm a painter and I'm an academic, and I work at the Michaela School of Fine Art, and I was working with a photographer, Margaret Courtney Clark, who's a Namibian photographer. We were putting together her new book when COVID struck. And normally when you put together a photographic book, you lay everything out on the table and you start moving things around and making choices about which image goes next to what. When COVID struck, she had to go back to Namibia and we were working long distance. And we got used to it. But in the process of her sending more and more photographs to me over the digital realm, I noticed things in the photographs that were, certainly from my position as a teacher of fine art, that she did things that I would tell my students not to do. But this is now a renowned international photographer. And I felt, oh gosh, I can't really critique that, but I can ask questions why. So I asked her why she did the things that I was noticing. And one of the things that I was noticing was that she was joining things up, which flattens space in an image. So traditionally, if you had wanted to create depth in an image in a landscape, you would make things cross over one another. She tended to have a horizon line. In Namibia, the horizon lines are incredibly long and flat. And if there were a series of fence posts, they would all end up at the top. The horizon line would sit on those fence posts, thereby making vast distance suddenly flatten. It's a visual effect. So I kind of said, why do you do this joining up thing? And you're presumably conscious of it, you know that you're doing it. And it was a very carefully worded email. And she didn't respond verbally. She responded with a photograph, possibly correctly, as a photographer would do. I'm just going to share the image she sent me. I'm going to try and share the screen. She sent me this image. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, which is an image of a stone that marks. Can you just see the image? I hope you can't see my desktop.
Just the image.
We can just see the image,
okay.
yeah.
So this is an image of her dog's grave. It's a stone. Behind that, there's a wall of a building, and in between those two, there's an aloe bush. But she lined them up. So if you'll see this particular point here, the tip of the stone, the base of the aloe coming through, and the line running at the back meant that everything was flattened out, and it looks like the aloe is growing out of the top of the stone. This was a kind of interestingly polite but rude sort of, don't question me on what I do. So the only way that I could respond appropriately was to make a watercolor. And I made a watercolor of this, and I called it a tree on a rock. And out of that came a series of conversations around that. So this was the first image in what became a book. It was never intended to be a book. It came out of a conversation across the digital divide. And it marked a growing intimacy in a relationship that was between a photographer and a painter in a time of COVID, over distance and obviously the isolations we found ourselves in. And it became one of my tools, this little book, for resilience during this time, hence the inclusion here. So I'm going to now stop that share and show you another, let's open the book. The book itself, if you can see me still, is a very slim little book. Can you see me? Those of you who've still got me on the screen.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a slim book. It's a slim book with illustrations. It's designed in the mode of a children's book. I call it I call this tree on a rock, the near and far tree, a story of distance and proximity. And I'm going to read it to you. It is also, the text is presented in what is called kind of text imaging. In other words, the text is arranged on the page. It was done by the designer Gretchen van der Bijl, and it's arranged on the page in a way that also has an image quality to it. It's not just the story, but it takes me about 6 minutes to read. I hope I'm not going to run too much over time. I think I've still got some time left. If you'll bear with my throat.
Yes, go ahead. That sounds great, Virginia.
Okay, so it's a children's story for adults and an adult story for children, because it works both ways. And I think that sometimes that's really useful and really important thing to do. So there's the near and far tree. There's the watercolor of the photograph that I got. Once upon a time, there was a near and far tree. The near and far tree grew on the tip of a rocky rock in a distant land on the edge of a sandy shore, beside an even sandier desert. The near and far tree was not like other trees. It had only a few branches, but they were red and strong and pointed at the sky. Its leaves were small and reddish white and barely noticeable. They were small in order to survive the harsh conditions of the shore. They clustered together, tightly protecting each other. A thin vein of green pulsed in their center, barely visible, just there, calling to other trees in other lands where the trees grew differently, grew greener. There were no other near and far trees. although there were other trees that were a little bit like the near and far tree. There was the lying down tree, which grew in such harsh terrain it had to grow sideways along the ground. And the mirror tree, which always fell in love with whatever was next to it. Then there was the tree of longing that reached out over cliff edges, spanning impossible spaces. And the yearning tree, a cousin to the tree of longing, whose branches touched the sky and got tangled up with the stars at night. The near and far tree seemed to be the only thing that grew on that rocky rock. But there were other things living on the rock, mussels and barnacles and small crabs that would sometimes chat to the near and far tree to keep it company. And for the near and far tree, it was home. The near and far tree grew strong and adapted to its tough life as the winds blew and waves beat about it and the dust from the desert whipped across the shoreline. The near and far tree waited. It knew its task was to wait and watch and be. It knew the wind would bluster and sometimes the sea would roar. It knew at other times the waves would be gentle and caress the rock at its base, lapping around its edges. It knew that sometimes the desert sands would rush across the plains and blow into the sea, stripping the near and far tree's bark with sharp-edged grains. It knew at times the sun would burn. At other times it would glimmer through the fogs that swept that shore and be like a great silver ball in the sky, just waiting to reveal the blue that was beyond the haze. Once, in a blue moon, the nights would be gusting, and then suddenly the sea would become still, dark and burnished, and glimmering by the light of the lunar lantern. The near and far tree counted its time. It counted its time by the moon, in the manner of all things on the earth. It let each moon connect it to the rhythm of all others. The first moon, the second, the third, fourth, fifth, letting time roll over it. Sometimes time felt long, sometimes it felt short. Sometimes the near and far tree felt it did not know what time it was in the bigness of what is. But at other times it felt it knew exactly the moment it was in, every tiny detail. For, given its perilous position on the rock, the near and far tree had long ago set its roots to grow deep, making their way between the fissures in the rock, inching through every little crack, finding a place, extending ever deeper, down through clefts and splits, openings and slits, down, down, down its roots grew. Conversing with everything they encountered, the roots whispered with filaments of others, brushed against tendrils of beings past and present, and gathered the stories laid in the strata of the rock. Down through the ages they felt their way. As the near and far tree's roots pushed ever deeper, they felt the pulse of the earth. They felt the tremors of the land. One day was a particularly stormy day, and the near and far tree on the edge of its shore was beaten and shaken, its branches and leaves set in disarray. It could sense in the distance a clamoring, a great shouting and a commotion, a great noise of the times. There was unrest in the land, a great fear, a great ignorance, a moment of great agitation, and it knew a dark sickness was sweeping through the people. And yet, within the darkness also came a great stillness, and within the stillness was a great waiting, awaiting something. The near and far tree gathered itself into itself, and at the same time stretched out into the world, feeling all things from the tips of its branches to the furthest reaches of its roots, deep, deep in the earth. And it sensed a sound, at first a low hum, a gentle, resonating thrumming, slowly rising up, gathering into a chorus. A sweet uprising that came from the core of the earth, reverberating through all things, It was sweeter than anything that the near and far tree had heard before, stronger than the near and far tree knew any sweetness to be. It was a sweetness that moved through all things, that could move all things. The near and far tree sighed as it heard the sound. It sighed as it heard this call to its being. It sighed as it felt joy.
Oh, Virginia, thank you so much. I'm going to put myself on camera because I think my internet has stabilized. There's so much that I could personally respond to in what you've shared. Yeah, a lot about what you spoke about at the beginning of using this project, or finding that this project cultivated resilience for you, and the importance of a kind of coincidental collaboration is beautiful. But I'm here to hold space for everybody. So I would love to ask both you and Angelique, I guess, what it is that drives you to write and to create, and whether that drive is about joy or whether it's about other emotions as well, or other reasons as well. Virginia, since you're unmuted, if you'd like to go first.
I think making art has always been a way of finding out about the world and finding out about what I understand, and a way of making a connection. And this particular little story, I mean, it's quite strange to be an academic and do this sort of kid story thing, which I've never done before. I've never made a thing like this before. And it came out of, as I say, inadvertently. It wasn't an intention. And I think one is led by art making. I mean, you had a session earlier where you were talking about play and letting the play lead you. And art making it's a deeply thoughtful process, but it needs play, which is a kind of, it's almost a tapping into a source. And it's, for me, the making of art it has an element of delight. It is filled with light. And when I'm in the zone, and they call it the zone, when you forget what the time is and whether you've eaten and all of that. It is the most astonishing feeling. It is a deeply rooted feeling. It connects one. It gives me joy. I'm not one of those artists who bang my head against the wall and go off into a grand funk when it doesn't work. The things that don't work always lead you to the things that work. So I have great faith in the process.
Thank you. Thank you. Angelique,
I guess for me, it feels a bit more personal, and I usually don't read poetry out loud. So this is a very rare time that I would do this. It's usually, I would just write it, and sometimes I'd submit it to places and so on. But I guess for me, it's sometimes a vomiting out of whatever there is to feel, and just kind of getting it out of my head or out of myself and onto a page. But I guess over time, it's also become a space where I think to some degree I've given voice to my mother and my grandmother, and the spaces in which I've grown up, which predominantly is on the Cape Flats in South Africa. And so I guess it was wanting to give my mother's tongue a voice and a space, which is where that's come from for me. Yeah,
I can experience that in the way that in the reflections that you put into the poetry. Thank you. Chisomo, I know we have 2 further offerings that are going to come. Is it at the end of the session, or would you like to do that now and give Grace and then Grace and Augustine can also join
yeah,
you know,
so
whatever conversation Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So what I'm trying to do now is just to share. The thing which I'm always worried about is that something with computer audio has to come from. I want to share YouTube, so I'm trying to make sure that I share it so that the sound also comes as well. So I just want you to ask me to tell me if the sound doesn't work.
Okay.
Can you hear?
No, I think you need to do the advanced settings and make sure that you're also sharing the sound. So when you go into the screen share option at the bottom of your screen,
Go to advanced.
Go to advanced and just click computer audio, make sure that's selected, or
Okay.
share sound as well. Yes. So now I hope when you try to play the video again, it should come through.
Is that working?
No, I don't know why.
Do you have your files for those who are presenting? Are you able to share them on your phones while I figure this out?
Otherwise, just some more, we could continue the conversation.
Let me download them onto my computer and we can continue the conversation. It'll take me a minute to download onto my cloud and then I'll let you know. That should take a minute.
Okay, great. I think the other thing that I really took away from both of the readings and the visual illustrations and the conversation so far is that piece about resilience. Angelique, you know, you spoke about like this kind of need to vomit onto the page your experience and what can happen for us as human beings when we express ourselves is a feeling of both intense vulnerability, and I want to acknowledge you, Angelique, especially for stepping out of your comfort zone and sharing with us. And I think sometimes sharing online can be both easier but more challenging. Yeah, so that creative vulnerability, but also the resilience that can come from putting your emotions onto a page, putting your experience onto a page. Carla, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thanks. While Soma's finishing up, I just wanted to make a comment. The thing that struck me that linked so nicely Virginia's work and Angelique is the idea of different types of times and histories. So in Angelique's, the calling and pulling of her great foremothers, foreparents, and the way, you know, that line you had about, imagine if joy was hereditary. You know, we speak a lot around the hereditary nature of trauma and intergenerational trauma. But that reframes a question: what if joy is hereditary? What if love is hereditary? What if we can both recreate and also undo past hurts? And Virginia, in the book, the idea of the tree being linked to a time that is beyond the time just of the audience or the readers, so linked to a time that extends into a kind of universal time of the moon, but also linked into a geologic time that is both connected to that stellar time, but also disconnected from it because it exists outside of it, and yet the tree being very much part of a present moment of fear or whatever is happening at that moment. So I really liked how in these formats which are different and yet of course share similarities, the way both of you evoked and brought through time as something that can speak both to pain but also to joy. So just an observation. Thank you both of you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Thanks, Carla. Thank you. Chisomo, the platform is yours.
All right,
We're good.
There was an incident. Pause. There was a gasp, a sigh. At the sight of what my eyes saw, I saw the soul. I snapped, clicked, and pictured it. Pain. But no. Pause. A smile. The gasp was a surprise of love, a gift of love, given to what I, with my eyes saw. Care. A smile in his and hers, as the hope that they thought was lost. Hope. Tiptoed, tick-tock, and timely hope walked to him and her. Joy for him and her, as though to sing a hymn of him and her. Love to see the life saved for him and her. Counted joy to have had. The souls save a soul in that building full of souls, and all of those who saw the passion of the soul savers, the souls that were saved by the soul savers. An applaud for all those who save souls, because that sigh is relief.
So cool. I have one more. Grace is up next, and then I'll turn the mic over to them.
Wonderful.
Angels in lab coats. This is about a man who healed the sick, one trained in the art of healing. A woman rushed into the hospital with a child on her back. From where I sat, waiting, I could hear the child's exasperated breathing. Reminded me of that of a motorcycle. The doctor was signing papers and looking like he was about to leave. He turned and saw this lady in agony. His response was amazing. He knew how to calm an anxious mind. He turned and carried this child as if it was his own. Something changed when the woman walked out of the consultation room. Her tears had dried up. She had a smile of relief on her face. Good doctors carry the magic of taking away your burdens. She went to the receptionist to sign some papers. She said they had to spend the night for observation, but otherwise her child was much better. Angels in white coats save lives, and the man deserves his flowers.
Beautiful. I'm really enjoying these offerings as a way to close our time together. Would Grace or Augustine, is that right?
Yeah.
Would they? Hi, Augustine. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Is there anything you'd like to share with us about
the piece?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there isn't much. I think when I was writing it, it just came to me as to how there's so many times where we don't really see how much effort is being put into the healthcare system. And also, I think I related this piece to an incident that I had where I was in the hospital, I was given treatment, and somehow the reactions of the person who was treating me were really precious, because one would feel like there's something bad going on, but then it was just soothing how she would address everything that was going on. And so I think when I was writing it, it was just coming to me with a lot of inspiration from the things that I see around, and also this little things, how the little things really make things great and really make it amazing. So yeah, there just isn't so much to say, but yeah, pretty much that.
And that leads on, thank you. And that, I really heard similar observations come through in Grace's poem as well.
Yeah.
Hi, Grace, I can see you there.
Hi.
Hi, is there anything you'd like to add?
on top of what Augustine said, I just wanted to say that apart from the terrible experiences we have with probably doctors or nurses like that, we also need to look at the bright side, which is they actually heal us and they're actually there for us when we need them the most. And they could turn like a really bad situation into a really good one. So yes.
Yeah, actually, both of your poems are reminding me of an experience I had where I was far away from home. I was in another country and I was hospitalized and I was very sick. I was being put on a drip and the nurse tucked me into bed as if I was her child. In fact, she even tucked me into bed and she said, "Don't worry, you're my daughter this evening." And it was just something I can never forget. And I felt those same emotions again as you were sharing both of those works with us. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to both of you. Yeah, and if you want to rewatch either of those two poems from Augustine and from Grace, you can find them on the website of the symposium. And I assume they'll be kept up there. Chisomo, is it?
Yeah, it's time, isn't it? I didn't prepare for the end. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even. Every other point of transition, I had something to say except this one. I just have to express my absolute gratitude for everybody. If I'm just going to start with the poets, thank you so much, Virginia, for reaching out. Angelique, we had such a wonderful conversation and leading to your poetry reading. Grace and Augustine, literally there was a WhatsApp chat going like, oh my God, this is fire. And thank you so much to Emmanuel for organizing the Chanko Poets. I mean, we were able to WhatsApp everything and it was a bit of a scare at the end, but we got everything uploaded. And from there, I just want to thank all of the participants. Every single one of you, our keynotes, Shay and Angelo, and I'm really going to read off everyone here, The Art of Health, Catriona and Amir. I just thank you so much for bringing all the talent from West Africa and Southern Africa to really share with us about what joy means in the musical and artistic sense, and really helping us to disconnect from intense time and to connect in this as well. Let me just go back to make sure I cover everybody. So Paris from Kemri, absolutely wonderful for talking about nurse managers. The lifestyle medicine, I learned so much from Dr. Monye and from Grace Muvunyi. Then we had Chimwemwe and Art Malawi, absolutely fantastic on cleaning and everything. Then again, the joy of sex. Thanks again to Angelique for joining on that. And then Dr. Sneh, who was absolutely fantastic and just poured her heart into telling us about just the reality of what it means to be a traditional healer. And Dr. Nusa Torres, and really helping us shape an idea of research. Brandy, Dr. Brandy from BMJ Medical Humanities, and really just shaping how to write. And I promise you we're almost there. Dr. Peter Kilroy, really just helping us understand how we can fund our work, and it was great. Dr. Benson Mulemi, I mean, first time I've ever heard him speak, and it was just blown away. So thank you so much. Victoria Tandeka for joining on the panel for creating medical humanities spaces. Art and Health Global Health Center Malawi, thank you so much for talking about us about the importance of how to break through stigma and homophobia by using indigenous knowledge. And Action Amos and bringing forth Dr. Ruhogo and Mr. Kantokota and Ms. Lambuya from Uganda. I mean, it was just incredible. And lastly, Judith Wayombe from Children of God and Voice Harmony and the staff and students at University of Global Health Equity. And very last but not least, Nawazi Carla, where are you at? Thank you so much for bringing me along this journey that you started and organizing. And it's been an absolute pleasure to bring the Medical Humanities Network. We've had many members in and out of here. Helen and Emmanuel have been mostly here the entire conference. I mean, it's just been absolutely wonderful. And we've had many others come in and out. And last but not least, Charlotte. Charlotte her voice hasn't been heard, but oh my gosh, where would we be without Charlotte Bizaji? So thank you so much. And I apologize if I've missed, I think I've got everyone. I did try to do this, but thank you so much to everyone. And I'll turn over in case Carla Noazi have any closing words.
I'm just going to jump in very quickly to say that I was just thinking about Angela's comment earlier on, and I really think that beyond the website, we need to document what we've done, firstly with breath and then with joy. And I'm just wondering how we can do this. And so I think kind of as a team going forward, everyone else who's here, if you could give us ideas of how we could think about what we've done, because I think that this conference has been incredibly special and I haven't attended anything like this. And so I'd like it to be kind of documented in some way beyond the website. So that's what I have to say. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I think we should sit back and think about how to do it. And if people have reflection pieces they want to write, or, you know, videos or poetry, just keep in touch with us. You know where to find us. We've been in touch with you for weeks now. We're just so grateful to everybody and our participants who have come and contributed to these conversations. Thank you so much to all of you. And I really hope that we grow together. And just as a final word, this journey has been quite a long one. From the getting of the grant to the running the breath to the ideas for joy, to bring together the Southern and East African Medical Health Humanities Network, to our regional members who have sat and contributed to workshops, to thinking, to bringing things together. A really huge thank you to you. Again, to echo Charlotte, we know that we would be 100th of what we are without you. So thank you so much for everything you do, and also to the online team that you've not only whipped into shape, but have also come to the party and in almost record time made things appear. There is a kind of joyful magic to it. It's like, oh, let's have a workshop, and then as if in some ultra round of super somethingness, things manifest. But also to Shisomo, who in her very, very Shisomo way has kept us focused, who came up with the idea for this, who in a conversation said, why don't we think about this thing? And when she first mentioned joy at that, I think it was at the SEAM workshop, there was this instant ripple, an instant idea of what a good thing, what an interesting thing this is. And I think one of the key things that comes from this is that what for me has been one of the most interesting things around this is that nobody has taken joy to be something flippant, or, you know, as Angela posited, it's something that you must try and buy and sell or keep. That what we've been talking about here is a range and a depth of emotion, of feeling, of engagement, whether creative or activist or academic. And that's been an absolutely joyous thing. And it's very, very rarely that I leave kind of virtual spaces feeling joyous or like full of joy or others. And this has been that. And that has in a lot of ways been because of the leadership of Shisomo and her vision and the Malawi Medical Humanities Network. So thank you to all of you. Please, if you've not yet become a member of the Facebook group, I've put the link in the chat. It is a private group, so you have to ask to be members because we're trying to keep trolls out. So please, it would be lovely to have you on there. We use it as a forum to share information, to talk about work, to share articles of interest. It has practitioners, it has activists, it has people from all over the world. So please do join. There's also the website and the newsletter, and we don't spam, we promise. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do that as well. And yes, other than that, just thank you to everyone who's made this what it is, especially all the hard work and incredible energy that's gone in from Shisomo and Charlotte and the Malawi team and the online team. Yes, and Noise and I are, as always, delighted to have been able to support and be part of this. And thank you everyone for your thoughtfulness, your honesty, and for bringing joy at a time when we really do need it in many spaces. Go forth.